Welcome all to the webinar. My name is Mauro. I will just turn on the video for a while so I can introduce myself. Hello all and welcome. Could you please just confirm that you are hearing and seeing me on the group chat? And then we're going to just wait another 5 minutes to see if other people join us, and then we're going to start. We're going to have the presentation and then 10 minutes for questions in the end. Please put your questions on the chat and then we will go through them in the end. Hello, welcome again to everyone. We're going to have this presentation with the 5 key steps about structuring your strategy to start your startup. And first of all, I'm going to introduce myself. If you have any questions, please write them down on the group chat. And in the end, I'm going to go through them as many as I can. If you have any issues, also please write on the group chat and then we try to fix them as we go. So again, welcome to the webinar, Start Your Startup. I will start with a little bit introduction about myself. My name is Mauro Romaldini. I have been working with startups for the last 4 to 5 years, and I have helped them to structure their internal strategy, mentor them, and also to connect with potential investors and other interested parties. So throughout my career, I worked before working with startups as an independent consultant. I work in private banking in Switzerland, and I have worked in financial services in Brazil. And throughout my career, I have helped over 10 companies raise over $150 million. And just in the last year, I have mentored over 100 startups through the FinTech Circle, NatWest, and Fast Forward Accelerator programs. And I have, especially in these last few years, created, managed, and helped companies improve their processes, especially focused on finance and strategy. Also, throughout my contacts, I help them to connect with partners, investors, and other interested parties. So we'll be talking about start your startup. I'm guessing that most of you are thinking either to start your startup or you already have started it and want a better way to actually manage it to build the strategy that you want to go forward. And I believe that this course will be good to help you achieve that. Again, if you have any questions, please just write down on the chat and I'll try to answer as best as I can in the end of the presentation. So what are the 5 steps that are crucial for a founder to think when they're starting their company, starting their startup? So first of all, they have to understand, and by understand, I mean understanding what the need of the customer is, what is the market that they're going to target, how the financial structure of the company looks like, and also to understand how the revenues are going to come in, what are the resources that they need. Basically understand the business as a whole, not only customer need, but also internally, what are the resources that you need to provide the product to your customer. The next step will be to structure your company. And by structuring your company, I mean getting the team in place, getting the right suppliers, getting the right investors to get the funding that you need, and also any other thing that you need to structure in terms of operations to supply your service. So maybe your service is not related to customer service per se, but you're going to need to structure your customer services support for a service that you're providing. The next one is to deliver. You have to know how you're going to make your product reach your customer. So if you're in the internet and you're doing e-commerce, it's very simple. You have a web page, you're selling to a customer, but also you have to make this customer know that you exist. So you have to do some marketing, some advertising related to that. After that, you have the control, which is basically seeing what you have done, and if what you have done is accordingly to what you have forecasted, what you have foreseen. And if it's not, you have to adjust your strategy accordingly. And then pivot. So most of the time, the startups don't end up with the same product that they started with. They usually change the product, they change the structures, they change the operations, and even the team, the founding team is not the same after a while. And this is a constant change, is something that a startup has to have in mind all the time. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna turn off my video so you can focus on the presentation. And again, if you have any questions, just write it down in the chat and we're gonna go through them in the end. So, as I said, first step is to understand the customer need. So first of all, you might have come up with a brilliant idea, but if there's not a need for it, then there's no reason for you to actually build this product and try to sell it. Second is the finances. You have to understand how the finances works. As you probably have heard, cash is king. So if you don't have cash, your company cannot go forward. Or even if it's a non-for-profit, you still need cash to pay for your bills and make things happen. Then again, if it is a profitable company, will the solution that you have created generate positive cash flows? Basically meaning that are you going to make cash out of selling your product and paying your suppliers and your employees and all the other costs involved in it? Are you still going to have cash in the end of the day to continue your business running? The next one is you have to understand the market. So first of all, you have to understand who you're targeting with your product. Kind of try to make an image of this potential customer. If it is a company, what is the revenues that they make, which markets they act into. If it is a person, what is the age range, what is the sex, what is the preferences that they have. And again, in the market, to try to understand who are the competitors trying to sell something similar or the same thing for the same market. So we have to be very careful on that. So one thing that is very common is for startups called don't look at the competition. And sometimes there's already a similar product that is already in the market. from a big company, and there's no space for them to actually get into the market. Next one is resources. So you saw the need, you saw there is a need for what you want to build. Then you saw that the finances of selling it makes sense. You saw who you're going to sell it to and who are your competitors. And then you're going to see what you need to deliver the solution. So who you're going to employ, who are going to be your suppliers, and also what type of suppliers do you need, what type of employees do you need with which capabilities and skills, and other things like that. So now we go to the structure, which is the next step. So in structure, once you understand the need, the finances of how the business works, the market to see who you're selling it to, and the resources that you actually need to deliver this product, then you have to structure all that to have an operation that will deliver the solution to the end customer. And for that, first of all, you need to have a team. This is also something crucial that a lot of startups don't look into, but one of the main reasons why startups fail is because they don't have the right team with the right skills. So you have to have the skills within your team to deliver the solution that you're trying to deliver. And by that, I'm saying that if your solution is a blockchain-based technology, you have to have a blockchain developer within your team, or at least make sure that they are not going to just quit the company very easily. The second step with the team, besides the skills, is the cultural fit. So first of all, you have to determine what is going to be the culture of your company. What are going to be the values that you're going to ingrain into this company? And you have to make sure that the team that is participating in this company have the same values, same attitude, and same vision for the future. Otherwise, it's going to be very hard for the team to keep together and to have a common goal to achieve. Next part of the structure is development, and by the development I mean product development. So you have to structure the development of your product, because sometimes what happens is that a lot of startups, they start the development of their product, but they keep going into a spiral where they go back to the beginning, and then they move a little bit forward, go back to the beginning, move a little bit forward, and they never actually manage to finish the product. So in order to avoid this, you have to manage the product development as a project with clear steps, with clear deliverables, and a clear time frame to be delivered. A lot of startups end up taking much longer and using much more resources than needed to deliver their products because they do not structure how the products are going to be developed. So product management tools are essential for this, because you're going to be managing a project to deliver a certain product for your company itself. So let's give an example here. Let's say that you're developing an app and you're going to hire, or you have in your team, a developer that needs to develop this app. So you need to make sure that there's a project with deliverables that will make sure that in the end, let's say of 1 year or 6 months, you have this app ready to go to the market. And that's where you have to structure the approach to managing this development. This can be also for development of a physical tool, because usually you have to build a prototype, and then you have to test the prototype, and then you have to go and maybe get a certification for the prototype and other things like that. So this is one of the things that you need to do to develop a product to go to market. If you're providing a service, You might not need to develop as much as a product that you're going to sell, but more how the operations or delivering these services look like. And this is also part of development, to structure the operations to make sure that they work, which takes us to the next step, which is operation. To make sure that you have a structured operations that will deliver a consistent customer experience. And what I mean by that is that every time the customer goes to you, he gets the same result or a better result than he had before. This means that you'll be able to have an operations structured enough to keep delivering with the same consistency to the customer. One issue that is very common for startups, if they are lucky and they start growing really fast, is that the operations cannot deliver for the new customers. And the service that you provide or the product that you provide actually starts getting worse and worse because you don't have the structure to deliver to a bigger set of customers. And this is one of the reasons why you have to have the operations very well structured. And all the process within the company should be structured. So you might have a procurement process to get whatever suppliers that you need. Even if you are not building a product or reselling a product, you still will need suppliers, for instance, AWS, Google Cloud, or other cloud providers to provide your service. So this is very important. The next step, first of all, you understand how the business works, how the business model works. Then you build a structure to support it. Then you need to actually make the product arrive to the customer. The first thing you have to do is to make sure that your customer knows what you're doing and know that your product exists. So basically, you have to do marketing. So advertising, inform what your customer think about your product, get some feedback to improve on it. So all of that is marketing and is part of delivering the product to the customer. Again, part of it should be done during development of the product to make sure that what you're delivering is according to the need of the customer. But once you have delivered a product, you have to constantly do that, and then it becomes part of marketing and interacting with your customer. The other part that is very important on delivering your product to the customer is which channels are you going to use, which sales channels. So each product and each customer has a different sales channel. For instance, if you're selling business to business, B2B, most likely you're going to need a sales team going and selling the product directly to the customer. If you are doing B2C, which is business to consumer, most likely you need to have a broad experience, which can be an e-commerce webpage or can be your own webpage to try to sell this product. Again, it will depend on the product, it will depend on the customer and how you can reach them. The next step, and this step is very important, and a lot of people don't see the real importance for it. It's control. The thing about control is that you might have made everything else perfect, but if you don't control and know if you're actually achieving your targets and use this information to fix whatever issues you might see or prepare yourself for the future, most likely the company will fail. So one of the main things that you have to think about is your key performance indicators. So what are key performance indicators? Key performance indicators are the key numbers that shows if you are succeeding or not in building a company and delivering results. And results can be any results. It's not only financial results. It can be one of the KPIs could be customer satisfaction and how that moves a long time. Another KPI could be profitability, if you're actually making profit. Another KPI can be cash flows, if you're actually making cash, positive cash flows, and having cash to pay all that you need to pay. So there are several key performance indicators, and the key ones for each business will vary. So you have to take a look at your business or your sector, what are the usual KPIs, and use them to see if you are reaching your targets or not. So also the KPIs can be used not only for controlling what happened in the past, but also for identifying opportunities. So maybe you get one of the KPIs is going to be about managing your sales and how your sales are growing in each target segment that you are selling to. And then you see through one KPI that actually segment that was not your target is growing much faster than the other ones. And then you can actually see an opportunity to move into the segment. So let's say, for instance, that your target segment will be women between 20 and 25 years old, but actually by checking your sales, you see that you have a very strong growth between men of 30 to 35. So you can actually identify an opportunity to move into the segment and sell to them and adjust your marketing strategy accordingly. So this is just one of the examples. Another thing also, a lot of people think that control is about seeing what is going wrong and fixing it. Sometimes it's about looking at what is going right and making sure that because it's going right, it's not gonna make operations go down. So as I said before, just going to go back the slide here. So as I said on operations here, you have to structure the operations to make sure that you give a consistent customer experience. However, if you're growing too fast, the plan that you made for that structure might not be a structure strong enough to handle the growth of the company if the company is growing too fast. So a KPI will show you if you're going way above your targets in terms of sales, for instance, and then you can adjust your structure because you see that you're actually overachieving in a way. And you'll be prepared in that way for this higher growth that you did not expect. So this is one of the key parts that a lot of startups don't do. They just go out there and try to sell and think that that's all. But if you don't control what is happening, you might not succeed because you're not reaching your targets and you're not looking at new opportunities. And also you might not succeed because you're doing too well and you have not noticed that actually you need to strengthen your structure or get more resources or change even the resources that you need. Another thing about KPIs also is that some companies have 200, 300, 500 KPIs, and this is not good. It's better to have less very good KPIs that will help you identify the key aspects of your business than to have many more KPIs and not be able to actually track them down and follow them and understand them. Now let's go to the next aspect. Again, following the saying that cash is king, cash flows and cash flow control is one of the crucial things that a startup needs to focus on. So according to this study from Business Insight with about 300 startups that have failed, the main issue that the startups face is that there was no need for their product. So going back to understanding the need. The second issue that they found was that they did not have enough cash. So basically, they went through a process in which they did not control their cash flows well enough, and they end up without cash to actually be able to implement their vision and make the business go forward. So this is very important for companies to look at and to control and to ensure that they have a tight control on the cash flows. So how do you manage cash flows? First thing you have to do, once you have known your resources, you know how much these resources will cost you, and you know that these resources will be usually connected to how much sales you make. Some of them will not, some of them will be fixed. For instance, rent of an office, it's a fixed cost. You're going to pay monthly that fixed cost. But for instance, if you're an e-commerce platform, for every product that you sell, you have bought this product before for a cheaper price. So for instance, if you're selling pens for £5, you probably bought those pens for £1 or even less or even more. And then this is a part of your cost. In order for you to make sure that you're not going to run out of cash, you have to make a forecast of your cash flows. You have to make sure that you see how the cash flows are going to move in the next 6 months, 1 year, and ensure that you have enough cash to keep the business going. And one thing that you have to be very careful on cash flow forecasting is that cash flow is very different from profitability and from profitability in a company, because profitability is about how much revenues you made, but sometimes in accounting, making revenues doesn't mean that the cash has come in, because revenues happens at the time that you sell the product, not at the time that you receive the money. How that works, I'll give an example. So let's say that you're selling this pen to somebody else, and this person is going to pay the pen in 30 days. So even though you have a revenues for the £5 that you sold this pen, the money is going to arrive only in 30 days. So you have to be very careful with these when you're dealing with cash flows, because not necessarily a revenue will be money coming into the company. At the same time, when you're buying from a supplier, sometimes they will give you 30 days. So buying, for instance, let's say this same pen that you're reselling, let's say you're buying from £1, you're going to have a cost of £1 when you buy it, but then let's say that they're giving you 30 days to pay for it, so the cash is going to go out only in 30 days. So you have to be careful with that, because cash flows and profitability and profit and loss statement are very different things, and you have to keep the tabs and controls on that. And that goes back to understanding finance that I said before. Then, again, you have to make the control of your forecast to what actually happened. And then you see if what your forecast is in line with what you're expecting, if it is, if you're having better results than you expected or worse results than you expected. And then you have to adjust your strategy accordingly. So you have better results than you expected. You have to make sure that you have the structure to support the operations to continue delivering the product even if you're growing fast. If you're underperforming, you have to see what the issues are and how you can address them. And now we go to pivot. So basically, change is constant. What you have to keep in mind is that once you have control your results, compare them to what you had as target. If you're not reaching it, you have to change. And for a startup, change doesn't mean only change the operations, changing how you deliver things, or changing the strategy. For a startup, change sometimes means changing completely your offering in a way that you did not expect. What happens in a lot of times is that a startup will start with an idea, go to market, and then see that the need for this idea is not there. But because they have a good team, they have a good structure, they have a good cash position, they will decide to actually see what the need is and change the product accordingly. And sometimes changing it means throwing everything out and building something completely new, but still using the same resources and capabilities that you already have. And that's why change is constant and change is necessary. And this is one of the key factors that startups will have as an advantage to big companies. Big companies usually take a long time to do any change internally to actually supply what the customer is wanting in the present moment. Some big companies are different because they already started as a startup and they never let the mentality to change. So one example is Google, another is Amazon. They actually are prepared for constant change and they have a structure in their company that allows for that. But if you think about big banks that have hundreds of years of exposure to the market, they will have a more inflexible approach to strategy and a flexible approach to change. Not because they don't want to take advantage of the new opportunities, not because they don't know that there are opportunities out there, it's just because they had this structure that was built for 10, 20 years ago, and to change it takes time. And by structure, I'm saying not only physical structure, I'm not saying only legacy systems, I'm also saying the culture. Because once you have 10,000, 15,000, even 100,000 employees with a culture that was very good 5 years ago, it's very hard to change that to a mentality that will lead you to constant change and to actually achieve the results that are needed to supply these new needs and come up with new products. So this is one of the key advantages that startups have. Now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the upcoming webinars that I have. And also after this one, I'm going to give some tips and that are connected to starting a company, getting funded, and things like that. So just a quick go through about the next webinars that can be very interesting for you if you're starting a company or you want to structure your approach to business or structure your internal business. So on 15 November, 7 p.m., we have a webinar on building a business plan. So the idea is that I'll give the key structures and key tools for you to build this business plan and to use it as a tool to grow and structure your company. Then on 20 November is about financial planning and how you can prepare the finances of the company, how you can forecast it, how you can manage your internal finances to make sure that you don't have major issues with it. Then on the 28th, we will have a webinar on funding, which is going to talk about several types of funding, not only equity funding, which is the most common known that people are looking for investors and that they ask for investors to give them money, but also about how to improve your cash flow management, what are the possibilities with grants, and which are the government support initiatives that are out there, as well as the opportunities for that. And if you heard of Funding Circle, this is one of them. So it's not only about selling your shares for cash, you have other opportunities to actually generate cash to build your business. So Now we're going to go through some practical tips that you have to keep in mind when you're starting a company. On the legal side, you have to think about intellectual property. So what is intellectual property? It's anything that the company owns that the company can make it their own. And basically the idea here is that intellectual property has value. So that could be a trademark, that could be a patent, that could be anything that can bring value to the company by itself, as long as you can register it. A lot of people think about software. Can you register? Can you not register it? Yes and no. You can register processes, but coding is debatable. It has to be something very specific for you to actually be able to register it through a patent. Then if you are working within a regulated environment, you need to get regulated. And for that, you have to take a look at, for instance, if you're in finance, the FCA, and there are other regulatory bodies that control and manage different activities. So if you're providing energy or clean tech, could need some other type of regulator to look into. Then about if you didn't even register your company, you can register your company online very easily. I'm going to send out the links afterwards in an email. So you can register very easily in a website from the government, in the company's house. And you have to be careful what type of company you register in. So if you're doing a limited liability company, it's the type of company that you need to have in order to sell shares or issue shares and get investors to invest in you. If you are a consulting company or a legal office with solicitors that you're just going to get together and build a business on top of that, it'll be more interesting for you to go for a limited liability partnership, which is very good if you're providing services, but you never will be able to sell shares or issue shares of this company to a third party. It's about basically service providers coming together and building a company on top of it, splitting the costs, and it also is a way to pay less taxes if you are doing it by yourself or as an employee. Then we have, on the taxes side, you have to think about the corporate tax, which is the tax that you pay on top of your profits. I'll send a link with some more information about it. And then you have to think about VAT. If you're selling a product or service, you usually have to pay VAT. There are some exceptions. And again, VAT, you have to pass the threshold. If you're not mistaken, it's £85,000 in the last 12 months. I'll send the link with the more details. Then if you have any employees, you have to pay national insurance for them, and you're going to have a pension scheme. The government has a pension scheme and national insurance. The information, I'll send the links for you to have a deeper look into it. The other gain that a company can have is capital gains. And the easiest way to explain it is, let's say that you bought shares of a company. Let's say you bought shares of Google, and then you bought these shares for £100 and you sold them for 110. Those £10 that you made as capital gains, and you have to pay a tax on top of that. So a company could potentially buy and sell shares of other companies, even though that's not advised. But also a company could, for instance, buy a whole other company and then sell this whole other company and have a capital gain on that. So it could happen. Even though for startups, I will say it's not usually the case. Operations. If you think about location, co-working spaces can be great if you're by yourself or if you have only 2 or 3 people in your team. Google has a co-working space for free that you can sign up for. There are other co-working spaces all over London. You can find them. I will send some links for you to take a look at. As for accounting tools, if you already have a knowledge of accounting, you could use Wave for free. It's a pretty good accounting tool. I use it myself. And then you have F6S. It's a website that has a lot of information for accelerate for startups, and they have a 6-month free support in accounting using QuickBooks, and they also have one person that can help you out with that. The other part of operations, if you are a startup, you're trying to build a network to sell your products to businesses or to find investors. I always say that Meetup and Eventbrite have plenty of events out there. A lot of them are for free. Some of them are not. You just have to go there and see which one makes more sense to you. So now we have approximately 15 to 20 minutes for questions. So if there are any questions, please share on the chat, and I will try to answer them as best as I can.